you may have already heard the grim statistics, even with the advanced safety in automaking and in our cars and trucks, the car injury related and deaths, the fatalities, those numbers continue to rise. You might be wondering, how can you protect yourself and your family, especially when it comes to auto insurance? And for that, we turn to Tom Sinas from Sinas Dramus Law Firm. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's not a great stat to read when you see fatalities on the rise and injuries on the rise when it comes to automobiles. How can we protect ourselves if we're ever in one of these crashes?
Well, you're right. It isn't a good statistic. It's probably worth pointing out why it's so bad. The data that came out in the state of Michigan was published last year in the summer of 2022, and it covered trends from 2021. And in short, both fatalities and injuries were up. And that trend is one that has continued for the last couple of years. Tragically, fatalities were up to a level that had not been seen since 2005. And unfortunately, Michigan is not alone. There have been, as I'm sure you've heard, news stories about these same trends occurring across the nation and, of course, in other states. And so there's something going on out there. Many people, of course, comment on the role of distracted driving, but there are certainly things going on out there that is trending all of this in the wrong direction, despite the fact that our cars, we're told, are safer than ever. So I think the first thing that people should consider in Michigan is to remember that we are a no-fault state, meaning that for certain types of benefits, you look to, generally speaking, your own auto insurance company, and you get those benefits regardless of fault. One of the things, of course, that changed over the last few years is that people in Michigan can choose different levels of no-fault coverage for their medical expenses. And here, as I've said before, I think it helps to think about auto insurance in this context more like health insurance, because the medical component of no-fault insurance coverage really steps in and functions like a source of health insurance payment. And so what people, I think, should do to protect themselves from this very troubling trend is to purchase unlimited no-fault coverage, meaning no-fault coverage that does not have an arbitrary limit on the amount of medical expenses that can be paid on behalf of the victim. Because, of course, you don't know when or if this will happen to you or someone you love. But if it does, of course, you don't know how it's going to happen. And if you've chosen something less than unlimited, then once that coverage is exhausted, you're going to be forced to rely on other forms of payment, traditional health insurance or Medicare or Medicaid and the like, which generally speaking do not provide the same scope of benefits that no-fault coverage does. So that on the no-fault side of things is the first thing that I would recommend that people consider.
Now, it sounds to me like if you didn't have enough insurance, I mean, is there such a term as an underinsured motorist?
Yes, there are two other terms that people should consider and consider carefully: uninsured and underinsured motorist. Well, what are those? We've talked about them before. This is coverage that you purchase to protect yourself in the event that you're a victim of a car crash that is caused by someone who either has no insurance or who has too little insurance. In our system, victims look to the at-fault driver for certain things, like a claim for their change in quality of life, or a change in their ability to earn income after the first 3 years. Well, of course, again, you don't know when this is going to happen or how it's going to happen or who's going to cause it. But the one thing that you can do is to purchase as much uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage as you can afford, so that if that happens to you, if you're involved in the crash caused by someone else, you don't have to worry about how much insurance coverage that person had, because you've purchased your own coverage that will stand in the shoes of that person's insurance coverage. And uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage in Michigan is optional, meaning no one is forced to buy it. You have to affirmatively choose to buy it, and then you have to affirmatively tell your insurance company or your agent how much coverage you want to buy. And so, again, with the data going all of the wrong way, with more crashes happening, more fatalities, more injuries, in addition to unlimited no-fault coverage, people should purchase as much uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage as they can afford.
And of course, if you are involved in an auto accident that involves injuries and God forbid a fatality, there is a resource for you. Obviously, Tom and his staff have the expertise. How can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can find us anywhere online at www.sinusdramus.com. They can call us in West Michigan at 616-301-3333, or they can shoot us an email at info@sinusdramus.com.